also a National Commissioner. And to the right of Honorable Chairman of INEC is Barrister Mrs. Mia Agbamushimbo, a National Commissioner. And then Mr. Kenneth Ukiagu, a National Commissioner. And then to his right is Professor Rhoda Gomus, also a National Commissioner. And we have Dr. Bababila, a National Commissioner to her right. And finally, Mr. Sam Olumekun MNI, a National Commissioner. It's my pleasure to also specially welcome the Inspector General of Police, Usman Akali Baba, CFR, to administer a round of applause for this Inspector General, please. It's also my honor and privilege to respectfully recognize the presence of chairmen of some electoral commissions from sister African countries here present. Mr. Jacobs Mwambegele is the chairman of the Electoral Commission of Tanzania. You're welcome, sir. A round of applause for him. We also have Mrs. Elsie Ngikembua, chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Namibia. Is she around? She's here to come. Mrs. Davidetta Lansana, chairperson of National Electoral Commission of Liberia. A round of applause for her, please. All the way from Liberia. We have Ba Isaka Sona, chairman of the Electoral Commission of Niger. You're welcome, sir. We also have Mr. Sakalafia, chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Benin. Welcome, sir. We have Mr. Elsie Oedraogo, chairman Electoral Commission Burkina Faso. Is he around? Maybe he'll soon join us. Also here in Nigeria, Mr. Mohamed Kone, chairman Electoral Commission of Sierra Leone. We have Mr. Aliu Muma Njai, chairman Electoral Commission of Gambia. We also have in Nigeria, Mrs. Jane Mensah, chairperson, the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Maybe she will soon join us. It's my pleasure to also recognize together all the chairmen and secretaries of the 18 political parties here present and all the party agents. You are especially welcome to this Collation Center. And all the heads of development agencies here present, members of the INEC Press Corps, and all the journalists here present. You're all welcome. With that, it's my pleasure and privilege to now invite the chairman of INEC to please make a few remarks. Honorable Chairman, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. The Inspector General of Police, the agents representing the political parties, national and international observers, members of the diplomatic corps, my colleagues, the chairmen of electoral commissions from East, West, and Southern Africa, representatives of the various security agencies, the media, national and international, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, I welcome you all to the formal opening of the 2023 Presidential Election Results Collation Center. As some of you are aware, collation of presidential election results in Nigeria is done at 4 levels. After the conclusion of voting, counting, and recording of results at the various polling units. The results are first tallied and collated at the 8,809 registration areas or wards. The collated ward-level results are tallied and collated at the 774 local government areas nationwide. Thereafter, they are tallied and collated in each of the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. The collated figures for each state and the Federal Capital Territory are finally collated here in Abuja, where the announcement of the outcome of the election will be made by the returning officer for the presidential election, who also doubles as the Chief Electoral Commissioner of the Federation. And this is a duty that I'm privileged to perform, and it will be done here at this venue. As we commence the concluding processes, it is my duty to explain the procedure and set the ground rules for the proceedings as follows. 1, all accredited agents, observers, the media, the diplomatic community, and security agencies should adhere to the sitting positions assigned to them. 2, results for each state of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory shall be presented by the State Collation Officer for the presidential election, or simply put, the SCOP, who will also serve as the collation officer at state and the FCT level. After collecting the results at state level, the SCOP shall be accompanied to Abuja by the resident Electoral Commissioner and security agencies. On arrival at the Collation Center, the SCOP shall be received by the Collation Secretariat, which shall organize the sequence of presentation. The returning officer shall invite the SCOP, the State Collation Officer for the presidential election, accompanied by the resident Electoral Commissioner, to the seat we are going to provide to my left for the presentation of the results. The SCOP, following the format for the presentation of results, shall loudly announce the votes scored by each political party in the state, including reports of cancellations and areas where elections did not hold, if any. The returning officer then invites comments and observations, if any, from the polling agents. The returning officer requests the SCOP to submit the original copy of Form EC8D. When all the SCOPs have presented their results, the returning officer shall display the sealed copies of result sheets EC8DA, which is the summary of results of elections on state-by-state basis. The EC8E, the declaration of results for the election, and EC40G3, summary of registered voters in the polling units where elections were either cancelled or not held. And I will have the privilege of displaying the blank forms before proceeding starts, after the receipt of the reports from the various state collation officers. Next, the returning officer shall complete the EC8DA and announce the votes scored by each party, and thereafter will invite the polling agents to endorse the form. The returning officer then completes the EC40G3 and compares it would form ECADA to ascertain if any of the candidates has satisfied the requirements of the law to proceed with declaration. If satisfied, the returning officer completes Form EC8E and makes a declaration of winner. And finally, the returning officer invites the agents of political parties to receive duplicate copies of the EC8DA and EC8E, which is the final declaration of results. Having set the ground rules, from today, the Collation Center is hereby declared open until the final determination of the 2023 presidential election. During the course of proceedings, there may be interlude or adjournments. This will be announced by the returning officer as the need arises. As soon as any of the scopes arrives, the process of collation will begin. Once the process begins, the Collation Center will be open all day and all night, subject only to short breaks as may be announced by the returning officer. The official results will be shown on several screens here at the Collation Center. There are a number of screens to my left and right. There is also a giant screen behind me on which we'll be projecting the results that the scopes are presenting for collation. I appeal to all political parties and media organizations to draw their figures only from the official results released by the Commission as the only body constitutionally responsible for releasing official election figures. When the scopes arrive, they will sit in the open. So there will be seats at the end of the hall. To my right, you will see black leather chairs. That is the holding area for the state collation officers for the presidential election. And then by the side to my right, you will see a table there. That is the collation secretariat. And the collation secretariat is directly under me. So everything that we are going to do here will be done in the open. There is no other room where any other procedure is holding outside this hall. Yes, we have our situation room, but that is just the situation room for the commission. But once collation starts, everything begins and ends in this hall and in the open. As the collation of results progresses, the Commission may find it necessary to brief the nation on matters relating to the election, but unrelated to the collation of results. When the need for such briefing arises, it will not be done here in the Collation Center. A media center has been prepared in Aso Hall, right behind this building, but within the premises, these premises, for such briefings. Aso Hall has actually been prepared as our media center. So when we need to make briefings unrelated to the collation of results, it will be done there. So we maintain the sanctity of this hall, essentially for the collation of results and matters arising from the collation of results. Where I am unable to personally brief the media, the National Commissioner responsible for information and voter education, sitting to my immediate left, Barrister Festus Okoye, will perform that responsibility. So as we await the arrival of the scopes, we will now take a break and resume at 6 p.m. We are certain that by 6 p.m., one or two of the scopes will arrive with the results. So we begin the process of collation. I thank you very much. We resume at 6 p.m. God bless you all.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman, INEC. As the Chairman has announced, proceedings will be suspended for a few hours and we will resume here at 6 p.m. On that note, I thank you all for coming here for the formal opening session of the National Collation Center. We thank the Inspector General of Police for coming. We thank all the chairpersons and chairmen of electoral commissions of sister African countries. We thank all the members of the political parties, the leadership of the parties, the party agents. We thank all persons from the diplomatic corps here present, all friends from development agencies, CSOs, NGOs, the media. This is good, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for coming. Thank you.
That's the official opening of the National Collation Center right here at the ICC in Abuja. And you just listened to the Independent National Electoral Commissioner there talking about the procedure for the collation and, of course, the final release of the results, or if you like, final pronouncement of the winner of the election right there. All right, so the INEC chairman actually said a lot of things, and I have my guests right here in the studio, and they are going to, analyze some of the things that he said, and, let us know what they think about it. He's clear about the procedure, and, of course, at 6 p.m., we would see all of that play out till all the states are covered, and then we'll have a final result. So I'll quickly want to introduce my guests in the studio. I have two new guests joining me in the studio. I have Paul James, the Director of Program Selections, Yaga Africa. Many thanks for joining us. And I also have with me Saka Azimazi. He's an international election observer. Of course, you observed the elections, but I'm going to keep your thoughts as regards what you think about the elections till much later. But let's respond to what the INEC chairman has said. You just listened to him. What do you think about the procedure for the collation and the final pronouncement of the winner of the election?
Well, I think we are too ritualistic in our engagement of the electoral process. When I heard the INEC chairman will be officially declaring the collation process open, I expected that it will start with also a heavy announcement of some of the results that have come in already, so we don't keep Nigerians waiting. But then to keep Nigerians waiting for another few hours also, I thought perhaps that could have been a better way to use our time well. There's a lot of expectations in the elections, and so any time gap could be misconstrued or misinterpreted. I mean, from the statement, we expect to hear the chair, for instance, mention how many of the collation have been concluded and whilst they are waiting, because, of course, we understand the process that has to start from the ward to the LGA level and to the state level. If there are a few states that have concluded collation, for instance, and they are being transported to Abuja, it will have been very instructive to say they have it on good record or good authority that it has been concluded in this number of states, and then, of course, they can make a prediction as to the time it could take for the results to be transported from the state to this level. We also expected that from the statement, the chair will have provided some insight as to how, or provided some ideas about how the collation went in some local government collation centers, just to give a sense of course as to how many of these centers have concluded collation. so that, again, like I said, we could then begin to put a timestamp to when we thought this whole process will be over and when these results will be back in Abuja. And from all indication from what we are seeing, if this starts from 6 p.m., we may have another 2 or 3 days of waiting before a final winner is eventually declared from the process. I also expect to hear a bit also about how the process went at the state level, because we know as of yesterday there were places where INEC did not conclude the process. And then there are also plans for INEC to go back today to conclude the process. I actually expected I could hear that from the statement, just to also give a sense whether that could potentially be a reason why the resource collation could be delayed until 6 p.m. when INEC is expected to resume. But maybe it may be too early for me to be making all of this prediction or this assumption. Maybe they are also part of the reasons why the INEC will want to wait until then, when it has a better information for Nigerians to come and share with Nigeria. But like I said, that would have been a better way to use our time to just have all of these things done about the same time, not you come at 6 p.m. again, you have to wait for another 2 hours before the next call.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Saka, you listen to Paul and you also listen to the INEC chairman. What's your impression?
Well, I think I share the sentiments expressed by Mr. Paul. Very much so, because in the era in which we are with the speed of electronic systems, I do not think anybody needs to carry any document from Yola to Abuja before you can deal with it. It's a precious waste of time. We are a country that has lost trust. There is serious deficit of trust in Nigeria. And that deficit of trust affects every activity of government and its agency. Any form of delay in doing anything leads to several interpretations. And some of them might be mischievous, some of them speculative and dangerous. So we need to avoid every opportunity that creates delay in anything. Like Paul just mentioned, I mean, as today we are at least 16 to 18 hours after closure, or even 24 hours after closure of voting. And we should be able to say which state is ready out of 36, at least FCT, where all of us are gathered. We should be able to know that this state is ready, the next one to come in is this, the one that is delayed is this, either because of distance or because they are still voting or something. So we should be a bit more clear in the way we synchronize the announcement of result from state, right? Because the collation center is meant for state results only. That is one. The second one is that in the administrative setup of the collation center, women have been completely marginalized. The chairman of INEC has announced that in his absence, the next person that will take up his job is another male. Where are our women? Half of the population of Nigeria. Why are we clapping with one hand? I represent the Gender Election Watch, and we are concerned that if you marginalize half of the population in administration of election, you give room for them to feel they have been alienated. So it is important that when we make certain arrangements, sometimes innocently actually, we ought to have behind our mind that our other half, where are they? They are part of the system, they are part of the population, they are part of the citizens of this country. They should be taken into account and be taken along in everything we do in our work. That is the much I will say in the meantime, but I suppose that the INEC chairman will consider that speed is essential in this matter.
All right, thank you so much, Saka. I share your sentiments when you talk about the gender issue, the fact that, yes, we should actually have more women. Looking at that table at the ICC, I think I could only spot one woman in the midst of how many men? Even the recs that came in from other countries, I didn't see a woman. So yes, that's a good question, and we should begin to look at that. And even the women too also need to go back and, you know, and position themselves properly, because it's not just about asking that the men, you know, give us the space. You know, we should also be ready to take the positions when, you know, they are made available to us. Many thanks for your submission, Saka. You've mentioned quite a number of things, and just also to mention that the sign language interpreter is a woman. So let's, I mean, so at least there's a woman somewhere. Okay, so, well, you have mentioned the issue of trust, which Paul also agrees with, and I'm sure that Dr. Abdul Hamisu would also give his thoughts about, you know, what the INEC chairman just said. But before I come to you, Hamisu, let's quickly get to Jos now and find out what's happening right there. Like Jos is not ready for us, so all right, while we wait for Caleb Gochin to get ready in Jos, Abu Hamisu, your thoughts about the press briefing by the INEC chairman as regards when the National Collation Center will actually open. He says we should wait till 6 p.m. We have to wait for the states to travel down with their results and then, you know, come to the National Collation Center and let us know what actually transpired in the states. What's your impression?
Well, you see, when Mr. Saka was making his submission, he talked about trust. You know, that was where we started from in the morning. I talked about trust and so on and so forth. The issue is, seriously, if you are INEC chairman, or if you work closely with INEC, at a point you will feel like abandoning the entire process because of the challenges. The way the results are signed in Borno is the way the party agents in Abuja wants to see it. You remember before Mukhtar left, he said some of the results that have been uploaded are blurred, in that they are not legible enough, and that can give room for speculation. People can misinterpret it. And now, if you say, okay, they should scan, maybe the scanner is not even good enough, and then it becomes blur. And somebody who is the party agent in Abuja will flatly disagree and reject it. So it boils down to a lot of things. This uncertainty, these challenges that we are facing, having to wait till 6 o'clock, for instance, okay, is still has to do with the logistic problems. Okay, some places started 8 o'clock, some started 9 o'clock, some at 2 p.m. People were protesting that they were yet to see INEC officials. And then some of those areas that could start around 2 p.m., you don't expect them to finish at the same time with those areas that started 8 p.m. For instance, those areas that are voting today, you don't expect them to finish casting the ballot, sort, and then, so even if it is just a unit, a polling unit that is remaining, say in Kano State or in Sokoto State, at the national level, they will not deem that process to have been completed if that very particular polling unit is not really concluded and then the result transmitted. So it's that very particular one unit will be deemed to be remaining. So even if they want to talk about that result at the national level, okay, INEC will still tell you they are still awaiting that
particular polling unit. Okay, a number of issues have been raised. You mentioned the cost of election. It's important to state that this election is costing about $662 million, right? Million naira.
Billion.
Okay. Billionaire, that's, I'm saying mine in dollars, $662 million, which is equivalent to about $7 per voter. That is what is costing, you know, us to actually have this election. And we'll talk about that and, you know, much later, and how we can actually, you know, save, you know, some costs in all of this process. So let's quickly go to Jos now. I hear that Caleb is ready. He's at the Jos North Collation Center. He has an update for us. Caleb Gochin, let's hear you.
Thank you very much, Harry. Thank you for joining us in Jos. Just like you said, we are at the Jos North local government area where collation of results is ongoing. And when we went out this morning, everything has been done, everything has been completed, even though we had one or two had to spill over. The only places left are these two wards in far away Shandam or so, where election may be held today. But here the officials are here and they are receiving results from almost so many. Nobody is telling us actually, because the officials say they've not been directed to speak to the press. But from what we have heard and what we've seen, many polling units have turned in their results for the presidential and national assembly elections. So that.
We'll talk about the cost of, the election and all of that. Before you joined us, we had a guest who talked about the fact that the whole process, the trust issue, is actually the reason why it's not as smooth as it should be, why a lot of things are not, in place. So how do you think that, in your perspective, do you agree, first and foremost, that, from when INEC announces the date of an election to when materials, non-sensitive and all of that are being taken to the state, sensitive materials and all of that, even the ad hoc staff, everything about the whole process, is it really the trust issue that is making it not as good as it should be? Or you think there are other factors that are impeding, us getting to that point where we can say our electoral process is about, say, 90-something% or so?
Well, not necessarily. If you think about the kind of heavy investment that has been made in this process and the fact that you got a new demography of voters that have becoming politically conscious and politically aware of what is happening, and also we're looking forward to a participation that they will be proud of, and then the kind of things you see also around our election. And if you go back also and you look historically to the conduct of elections in the past and the kind of outcome that we are getting from this election, so you begin to wonder what is happening. The more money you put into our elections, the more the problems remain. INEC suffered logistical challenges yesterday. Across several polling units, we know that the process started late. And so if you go back to the 2015 election, 2011, 2019, elections were postponed. Perhaps the only thing that INEC could celebrate today is the fact that against all odds, they were able to go forward with the election. But was this the election that Nigerians expected? I'll tell you that a lot of people were disappointed with what had happened yesterday, especially if you look at even an election that happened in INEC's backyard. You got places that voting didn't start until 9:30, 10 in the morning. And so it begs the question, what happens? The more money, like I said, you put in, the more you see these problems. Before now, you expect also INEC to be upfront in its communication. It is the human element that manages most of the things we see around INEC. If you think about the voter registration that happened, even when people were raising concerns about not having enough voter education, it is the human element that is conducting it. If you are having challenges with this, inform people ahead. That is how you build the confidence. That is how you build the trust. Let us also understand and appreciate that effort is being made, and understand also the challenges that INEC perhaps is facing or going through. I take it back to even when the announcement for the election happened. It happened in February. Nigerians were looking with hope, excitedly. Nigerians were looking forward with hope that come February 25th this year, this was going to happen. The middle of the year, we saw the voter registration that happened. Even from the voter registration, there were concerns about where people go to tell you, oh, there was ethnic profiling. They are not allowed to register because they are not from certain part of the region and all of that. And even when the voter registration was conducted, there were also concerns that some persons thought they were technically removed from the voters list by INEC without INEC providing information to the reason why they were removed for no fault of theirs. If you recall, this was the process that started online, and then people approached the INEC office to continue the process. Some persons, for the fact that, oh, they have this available online at the doorstep, they could just go on the internet and do whatever they want. At that point, they didn't even realize that if they are doing this, could potentially also lead to that disqualification in the process. Some of these persons actually even approached the INEC officials when, at the point of them doing the physical capture. If their records were indeed in the INEC register down for you, expect the officials to politely tell them, oh, you had already registered, or except you want to update your record. And then, we proceeded from that process to even when you begin to see reports, some people bandishing reports up and down about people taking records of PVCs, which was supposed to be a very novel approach by INEC to harvest the data of voters to share this, to inform voters that their PVCs were ready and how voters could pick up their PVC. But because there was no prior communication before then, of course, news went to town that some people were harvesting information from people's PVC before INEC began to react. If you think also about what happened in recent time, INEC did polling unit expansion, upgraded some voting point to polling units. Until the mock exercise happened, Nigerians didn't even know that INEC migrated some voters from where they had originally registered. Even during the mock exercise, how many people had information that the mock exercise, for instance, happened? In recent time, in the last week or so, INEC decided to start sending text messages to voters about how they could check their voting location. Then you ask the question, how many people have access to this kind of facilities to be able to check their voting location? This is something that should have happened like 6 months before now. And I mean, election is everybody's business. It doesn't just have to be INEC doing all of this. INEC could call, stakeholders could assist INEC in this, but even the stakeholders need access to the information to be able to assist INEC. Barely 2 weeks to this election, everything was muddled up, everything was rushed. You come to the election, I know some of this could not also have been INEC necessarily, we couldn't just drop it on INEC doorstep. We know there was concerns about accessing funds and all of that, but like I said, INEC need to be upfront in its communication to tell people where it was having challenges. On the eve of the election, we saw signs that these elections could be delayed. We heard reports where transporters are saying until they assess cash, they're not going out, even INEC officials. In fact, even on election day, there were some INEC officials that expressed how difficult it was for them to go out to engage the process. If you think even about the results upload at the end of the election, some officials will tell you we don't have facility or access for internet to upload results. It was citizens that were sharing their hotspots, their internet with INEC officials to send in election results. So if we think about all of these things happening, of course, they are enough to dampen confidence in whatever INEC is doing in the process.
Okay, many thanks, Paul. You have raised very, very important issues about this election. But, you know, some other people may want to disagree with you and say, oh, INEC has done a brilliant job compared to 2019. This is far better and all of that. But you have raised issues that we'll talk about, and I'm sure that Saka and Abu Hamisu would also, you know, let us know what they think about what you have said. So, but at this point, we'll take a break here and move to Sokoto. We have our correspondent there, and he's at the Collation Center.
Hello there and welcome to Sokoto, the seat of the Caliphate. I'm Usman Mohamed Benji. Right now we're at the Independent National Electoral Commission office, specifically the Collation Center for Presidential Election 2023. And as you can see behind me, the center is fully ready and set for the collation to begin. Right now, we have few journalists who have come for the collation, and none of the officials has arrived. But we are still waiting for their arrival so that the collation will start.
Happening right there in Sokoto. That seems to be the situation in many states that we have visited. Collation centers are ready, officials are yet to come, and while we just heard from the INEC chairman that, you know, we need them to actually collate their results at the state level, come up with something so that they can bring it here, and we're waiting till 6 p.m. So I'm just thinking that if we still have the situation at this time, then what's the guarantee we'll have a good number of states present their reports at 6 p.m. because after that they need to get transportation, you know, to get to Abuja. Of course, so many issues. So let's, I'll quickly get to Saka now. You had Paul, he talked about the issues. He's not satisfied with the election, but I can tell you that majority of Nigerians have come out to say, well, INEC has done better than the previous election in 2019. What's your position?
I'm working from the same angle with Paul, but I must say from the onset that INEC has done many things that were innovative and impressive. They have tried to improve the system, but there are problems here and there that some were not envisaged. Some will say that they could have envisaged them and therefore prevent them from happening, like distribution of election materials on election day. We were in some polling units and officials were not available until 3-4 hours after polls opened. I think that is something that can be prevented within the FCT. Now, talk less of some other parts of the country. But I think one of the key things that has gone well is the BVAS, the bimodal voting system, has worked tremendously well. What we have in our own monitoring was that it was 89% effective across Nigeria. And that is, I think that is a very important credit for verifying voters and accrediting them to vote. The other aspect that was also very helpful was that in elections past, people get accreditation and then wait for hours before they could vote. But this one, it was simultaneous. You just get verification, you take your ballot paper and vote. If you feel like, you stay. If you feel like, you go home. So those are some of the improvements we noticed. But in terms of administration, we noticed that, for instance, in many polling units, there were no security officials present, and that gave room for disorderliness, sometimes fracas in some polling units, as we witnessed in Rivers State, in Kano State, in Kogi State, and all that. But it is important for us to also commend the INEC commissioner for taking charge of most of the processes. That gives us some assurance of the fact that he's in control of the system, even if it has some flaws. So it is important that we continue to support INEC to do its best, but at the same time we'll continue to demand that it does better, because there is always room for improvement. So that is the much I would say for the time being. But let me just add that we also noticed from our own angle, you pardon me that I will continue to go back to gender and women issues as I continue to speak here. The percentage of women participation is dismal, disappointing, and totally unwarranted. At present, the total number of female contestants for the entire 2023 general election, that is presidential, National Assembly, and state election, is 7.02%. Women contestant is 7.02%. Of this 7.02% of women contesting, 4% out of this 7.02 are women contesting under the umbrella of fringe parties, parties that you are sure will not win. So at the end of the election, women who will be elected will be lower than 7.02. That should be a concern for Nigeria. We need to overcome that angle. We are one of the poorest in terms of women representation by election in the whole of the world. Out of 186 countries, Nigeria is 182.
Well, there are factors responsible for that, and I'm sure that you would highlight some of those factors and the challenges.
When it is time, we'll go into those factors.
Yes, of course. We need to highlight them. It's important we talk about them so that, you know, we can make amends and see how we can get it right, you know, in subsequent elections.
Some of these factors you recognize starts from absence of internal
I will
democracy.
hold you on that. Of
All
course,
right.
I'll get back to you on that so that you can, you know, actually let us know, you know, what we can do to get it right. I'll just quickly go to Dr. Abu Hamisu now. You know, earlier, while I asked you about the assessment of the election, you rated INEC high. You said, well, INEC had done a good job.
Yeah.
You know, because of time and because of the fact that, well, we'll soon let you go on the program, I'd like you to react to what Paul and Saka have said. They don't hold the same position with you.
Yeah.
So could you respond quickly?
Well, I would say that I beg to disagree with them based on the obvious facts. Nigerians were sampled even by your correspondents, and all of them gave kudos to INEC. I used to commend INEC from the point of view that they are problem solvers. INEC is not working in isolation of the system. Nigerian politicians, the ad hoc staff, have never convinced anybody that they will not be compromised or that they will not injure the system. So it is a continuous interplay between INEC that want the right things to be done and those that want to injure the system to subvert the process. Now, somebody mentioned that with the beavers, any attempt to snatch ballot papers, and so okay. The guest in Kaduna studio, he said it's an effort in futility. Yet people are attempting to snatch this, and that is why I'm saying that anytime we
Now
say
they're snatching beavers.
beavers, that is what I'm saying. Because they knew that with beavers, they can rig the election. So what they resorted to. So now, the entire, and that was why when Mukhtar was talking about relaxing the security and the rest, and people
restriction of movement and all of that.
That you should relax restriction of movement. Now movement is restricted, and you still have people that are trying to hijack beavers, that are trying to snatch ballot papers in ballot boxes. So what about if you relax the process? We're even saying that the process is over-militarized because the military is even coming to participate. They are the first line of defense before you have the police that are not carrying arms, and people are attempting this. You see, I said something.
And then you had Benjamin Honda in Lagos who talked about you know, the fact that maybe policemen should begin to carry arms.
Yes.
That would deter these thugs and hoodlums.
Previously, the security agents used to carry arms. It was part of the reforms and the demands of Nigerians that said, okay, they should not be carrying arms, so that people will not be tensed by the time they see these arms around. Now, that is why I'm telling you, you know, when we say we should rejig the electoral process, we end up tightening the process to the extent that it becomes complex in a bid to solve a problem. And I said the underlying principle, the underlying challenge is trust deficit. Now, I mentioned something. If you transmit an electoral result from Sokoto, for the fact that it is scanned, the agent in Abuja here would flatly reject it and say, no, I don't believe in this, that during the transmission,
something could have happened.
So,
or this is not the signature of
our agent.
Agents.
So, at the end of it all, if you're not careful in the bid to say, okay, you want to do things right, you want everything to be watertight, you end up threatening the system again because you tighten everything, and that is why the issue of logistics that we're talking about the other time. Now, if there is no trust deficit, I know that INEC with beavers, nobody can rig this process because everybody must be authenticated using beavers, and those that will vote will be captured by beavers, the officials. So it means that if I'm disputing the election, it can easily be audited because you have the ballot papers and then you have the beavers. It happened in Osun State. We've seen it. Now, I can confidently relax in my... So I can equally encourage INEC to say, distribute all the sensitive and non-sensitive materials 1 week before election, so that those places that are farther from the point where this things will be distributed will have it, and if there are issues, challenges coming from the distribution, we have like 1 or 2 weeks to do that. This is not done because of lack of trust. So it is on the day of the election that the sensitive materials will be distributed. And as I mentioned earlier when we started this program, somebody whose polling unit is in area 8 that got his materials from, say, INEC office in Metama will just require 10 minutes to get to area 8. Now, I told you of a polling unit or a ward that is in Kwali Area Council. But you cannot go through Kwali Area Council to access that very particular ward. You have to go to Niger State through Lapai. That takes you about 2 hours. And that person is supposed to get the same material with the person and start traveling. Now, if you go to Bayelsa, you have a situation whereby to travel to a local government will take you like 6 hours on the IC. And that person must come to, say, the state capital to come and get the sensitive materials and travel 5 hours. And in the process, maybe the boats are not efficient. The boat broke down, and then they have to fix it on the IC or call for another boat, and then you are expecting that person to start 8 o'clock. No, we are just deceiving ourselves. And that is why these issues around logistics have become a perennial challenge to INEC. If it were to be okay, we say advanced countries. No, it's not because they are advanced countries. It's because everybody chooses to do the right things. As a voter, I will choose to vote. As INEC ad hoc staff, I will make sure that I am patriotic to the extent that I will not allow anybody to compromise me. And then as a police officer, as a civil defense officer, I will do my job efficiently and ensure that I protect the people. So if all Nigerians will contribute just one thing, honesty, I bet you this INEC perennial logistics challenge will be solved, because you would have distributed it 1 month before time. Then you look at the issue of electronic voting. It was a debate in the National Assembly whether we should use electronic or not. And what were people afraid of? That hackers will hack it. Somebody is even saying that there are people that are resort that INEC is supposed to transmit, that if INEC should continue, that Nigeria will burn. So imagine that kind of a statement. And we're saying we should go electronic because it is faster. That is what is being done. But Nigerians still have it at the back of their minds that there are hackers that will tamper with the transmission to the extent that once you send it from your polling unit before it gets to INEC, somebody sitting around this location will tamper with it and change the figure before it travels into the system. Haba. Well,
thank you so much, Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. I like your submission and the fact that you are absolving INEC, you know, from the challenges. It's not about INEC alone.
No.
It's a system.
It's a system.
You know, and everybody needs to get it right for the electoral process to go smoothly. Yes. Many thanks for joining us, Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu from Political Science Department, University of Abuja. We really appreciate you for your time.
Thank you for
and of course, we hope that when we call on you another time, you will be with us.
Always.
Thank you. All right, so I still have my other two guests, Paul and Saka, right here. They will continue the conversation and, of course, give us the insights about this election. They are election observers. They are experts, and then they know what they are talking about when they talk about elections in this country and in other parts of the world. But for now, let's join my colleague, Kemi. She's in the Paysetter State. Kemi, what's the situation report from your end? Let's join my colleague, Kemi. She's in the Paysetter State. Kemi, what's the situation report from your end?
Thank you very much, Yenri, and a warm welcome to Ibadan. Collation of results continues across the country and Ibadan. Indeed, Oyo State is not an exemption. We heard recently the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, saying that results collation goes from the word to the state level. And here in Ibadan, I have with me the head of Department, Voter Education and Publicity of INEC in Oyo State, Rosemary Alaba Adeniyi. And together we want to look at what stage the collation of results are in Ibadan. Madam, you're welcome to the Verdict Studios in Ibadan.
Thank you very much.
Oh, like we did said, at what stage is the collation of results presently here in Oyo State?
Thank you very much. The level at which we are in the collection process is ongoing right now. Right now, we've gotten some few local governments at the State Collation Center where the presidential collation will take place.
Right.
Already, the collation has begun since yesterday with the registration area collations. That is, you know, when it moves from the polling unit, after the polling unit has been done, then each polling unit will go to the registration area. And in our state, we have about 351 registration areas. After that, it will now go to the local governments area, where the results will be collated for the presidential, the National Assembly elections. After that, it will now go to the constituencies, collation centers. We have about 15 constituency, then we have 3 senatorial districts. So it will now go to those centers before it now comes to our collations.
Okay. Earlier this morning, we have our correspondent at the INEC headquarters here in Ibadan who told us that activities are at a lull. Why is that so? On a day that will feel activities, that point should be a beehive of activities.
Yes, like I told you before, you know, these collations are in stages and it takes a lot of time. Ibadan, Oyo State is a very big place. We have about 6,319 polling units. Before these things to the registration area, then to the local government, then to the constituencies, and then to the senatorial. We have all these level of collations before they can even come to the state for the presidential collation. So we've been waiting for them since yesterday, and got so good. Before I left the office just now, we've had about 10 of the local government in the collation center.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we have our correspondent, Kayode Oladoshu, who has a situation report on Ibadan North Federal Constituency Collation Center, where results from Oyo South Senatorial District are being sorted and collated.
Last 24 hours has been a decisive moment for Nigerians to exercise their franchise and to elect another set of leaders. Now election has gone and then collation has commenced in various collating centers. Ibadan North Collating Center, which serves as collating center for Ibadan North Federal Constituency and Oyo South Senatorial District at Ikolaba High School in Ibadan North local government. They are expecting about 3 results from 3 wards in Ibadan North local government, which comprises of 12 wards. And also they are also expecting about 4 or 5 local governments remaining from the 9 local governments that represent Oyo South Senatorial District. I've spoken with some. They expressed their minds about the conduct of the election.
Has come and gone. We thank God it was peaceful. There was no violence in the state or any part of the state. And as for the INEC, they did a good job. Many of them came on time. Though we have some issues in some places where they didn't arrive on time, but actually they ended up making up for those time one way or the other.
INEC has tried their best. At least the electoral process was free, was fair enough. There is no reason of snatching, and in my own constituency, there's no snatching of box.
Will we continue to update you?
Thank you very much. That was the situation at the federal constituency as put together by Kayode Oladoshu. INEC has been commended by some of the people he spoke with, but I believe that we also have cases of isolated cases of lateness in the commencement of the exercise yesterday in the course of the voting. What would you say is responsible for this?
Thank you very much. As I really wish that we I can't really say concerning. There are lots of things that could be the cause of lateness in the arrival at the polling unit. Just like someone was saying on the television this afternoon, that when you get to a place where it's farther from where the takeoff is. You know, before there are areas that are it is 2 hours before you get there. Even though INEC has made the arrangements that all our materials are at the rack on Thursday. Friday morning, every of our materials are already gone to the registration areas, where it is even closer to the polling unit. But as at that, we have so many polling units that are even far away from the racks. Those are some of the issues. But there are issues too that maybe the security agencies are not on with those materials. We could have such cases that it could be the cause of lateness. But as it was, even in Ibadan, where we have not much, and we were able to deal with it, and things went really well.
Because I was going to say, doing a general overview of the exercise yesterday, would you say some of these hitches and glitches, would you say they've affected the overall performance of the INEC and the success of the elections?
All right. The glitches concerning lateness did not affect any of our activities yesterday. Even as it were, the process still went on smoothly, and we were happy.
You are the head of voter education and publicity. How did you see that what you have done so far impacted on the conduct of the people at the centers, polling centers yesterday?
Yeah, going out to monitor the election yesterday, I was really glad and I was happy and I was very much elated because I found out that a lot of people in the polling unit, I saw so much crowd, and I was happy that this is exactly what we are talking about. We want people to come out, and they really came out en masse to cast their votes. It was a really successful election for us here in Oyo State, and it has been the fact that we have been going out sensitizing people, and in our sensitization we go to churches, we go to mosques, we go to marketplaces, we do so much road show and so many things like that to make sure that people are aware that they should come out to vote, that INEC has improved in its operation. And I'm glad that people really saw that it's a new INEC and they were glad to come out to vote.
Okay, if you are to do an assessment of the exercise as it was conducted yesterday in Oyo State with previous elections, what are some of the marked improvements you've seen?
Yeah, the marked improvement is yesterday, like we saw, there were no incidences of ballot snatching. There were no incidences of thuggery. I called someone who was at the poll, and the person was like, wow, why haven't we discovered this thing since all these years? That this thing really worked, that there was nobody were arguing, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and they were all glad, and they went through the process seamlessly. Everybody queued, there was no arguments, there was no you didn't do this, you didn't. It was so good.
Okay, we know that INEC is the electoral umpire, but beyond this, you are also at the center of the activities and synergy between the politicians, the electorates, and even the other agencies of government. Yeah. How were you able to harmonize that to achieve this feat you just mentioned?
Yes, we were able to harmonize all these things because we carry everyone along in our activities. Whenever we have any activity, we, like my Honorable Commissioner, Dr. Adeniro Ramontela, about 3 weeks ago, went around all the zones, meeting stakeholders, meeting all the stakeholders in all those areas and making sure that they are carried along in all our activities. So we're able to sensitize people on all these things so that no one was left behind in our sensitization.
Okay, at this point, I want us to see a report as put together by Rofia on collation of the results yesterday.
A good number of electorates in Oyo Central Senatorial District cast their ballot and eagerly waited to witness the sorting and counting process.
1, 2.
Some voters, mainly the elderly, people with disabilities, albinos, including first-time voters, adjudged the election as calm, peaceful, with effective use of the beavers.
This is my first time voting, and I'm actually excited to vote today to make Nigeria a better place. There's been security and everything is going on orderly.
The security agencies are here, from the NSCDC to the police.
We have to go to almost 4 or 5 places to locate this place. There should have been a schedule demonstrating where you are supposed to vote.
That's why disciplined arrangements. The only problem here is that it's in front, in a place that is in front of another person's house.
I want to appreciate the effort of the INEC.
At the Ido local government area in Oyo South Senatorial District, voters also performed their civic responsibility by voting for their choice candidates peacefully while sorting and counting at various polling units as scheduled. In Ibadan, Rofia Animation Badmos, NTA News.
Thank you. We noticed in the course of that report, of interest to me is the first-time voters. I noticed that most of the reports coming yesterday, reporting the conduct and the attendance of people, reported a huge number of young voters, first-time voters. What is your take on this?
Yes, my take is that the youths are coming up and they are really in it. And that is a special one for us. We've been agitating that the youth should really stand up and really come out to give their own part of the franchise on what we've been saying. And the youth have really, I'm happy because, you know, when you are excited, like somebody that has just turned 18 and that really done his or her registration, and some of them will just go and keep their PVCs in their homes. But they were able to come out because we were telling them that these beavers, the new technology, will work wonders, and you will be able to do your civic rights peacefully without anything. And so they were able to do that with, you can see that they were excited. People talking about it, that the beavers really work wonders, and there was no any kind of hitches with the workings of the beavers.
So participation of youth in this year's election and the future of democracy now, a lesson from that.
Yes, we can take a lesson from it because there are lots of youths that are agitating that they've been marginalized. They've been you don't include youths in this, you don't include the youth in that, and so on. But the more they come out to demonstrate all these activities that they are into, the more they will be able to even say exactly what they really want and how do the elders help them with what they want.
Okay, apart from the marginalization of youth, another group marginalized or often referred to as being marginalized are the women.
The women.
What's the participation level of women in this election?
The participation of women, sadly, is very low. It's very sad. I met someone, a woman who was saying, even though she is one of the contestants, and she was telling me, look, auntie, this is the last time I will go into this thing. It is just too serious. It is just too this and that. And I tried to encourage her. You see, women, without them, you cannot do most of these things. Women, they should give women chances, because the 35% affirmation is not even met to any level. And so we want to meet that 35%, but we are, I don't know, we are not there yet. And we want to be there.
We are not there yet, and we want to be there. I will, at this point, agree with my colleague in Abuja, Iyenre, when she said earlier on that it is not just a matter of women being given the opportunity. The issue is, are women themselves ready and prepared to take up this challenge in participation or participating in politics? And Iyenre, at this point, I say back to you.
Many thanks, Kemi. Very interesting conversation there. And like Saka has been mentioning, he wants to see more women. I'm sure you saw 2 women right there in our Ibadan studio. Of course, we have our eyes on Oyo State, because Oyo has 2.176 million voters that actually got their PVCs. They actually have 2.9 million registered voters in that particular state, and 74% of them actually picked up their PVCs. So we have our eyes on your state, and of course we'll get back to you, Kemi, much later. Of course we'll get results from you as they unfold. So from the Pacesetter state now, let's head to the Confluence state. My colleague is there. Francis is right there in Lokoja. And I'm sure he has an update for us. In Lokoja, 1.4 million people actually are supposed to participate in the electoral process yesterday. Francis, so what's the situation at the moment?
I can't hear you. Can you repeat what you just said?
I said that 1.4 million people are actually supposed to participate in the election. We're supposed to participate in the election yesterday because we hear that 1.4 million of the registered voters out of 1.6 actually picked up their PVCs. I'm sure you have a situation report. You have results ready, or the Collation Center is ready. What exactly is going on in Lokoja at the moment?
All right, this is Lokoja, the Kogi state capital. And where I am right now is the situation room for the collation of presidential result. The situation in Lokoja as at yesterday, a lot of people, a lot of voters came out to exercise their franchise. And unfortunately, INEC officials were unable to come to the location as expected, though at the end of the day, the electoral process started, accreditation and then voting commenced in most of the polling units. But some other places could not start accreditation and voting because they were unable to bring materials to the location. And so that caused a setback. But generally, the atmosphere was very conducive for people to perform their civic rights.
You are at the Collation Center. What is happening at the moment?
All right, here at the Collation Center, INEC is still expecting results from 21 local government collation officers. But as we speak, 5 out of these local government have turned in their results, and that is Mupa, Kogi, Ijumu, Ogori, and Kaba local government area. So as more local governments comes in, definitely INEC will commence a collation of results.
Many thanks, Francis Udojo. Of course, we'll stay with you and come to you much later once that collation center kicks off proper, so we can get the update from the confluent state. Thank you very much. Frank.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, so right here in the studio, I still have Paul with me, Paul James from Yaga Africa, and Saka Azimazi, who is an international election observer. And joining us now is Mukhtar Imam. He's the Dean Faculty of Communication Management and Social Sciences, Penn Resource University, Gombe State. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I think I'll just quickly start with you. You know, you just saw my colleague in Lokoja, and from all the centers we have gone to, the collation centers we have gone to so far, it happens to be the same thing. Collation centers are ready, well decorated, some people are seated, INEC officials are yet to come, and collation is yet to start properly. For the off-cycle election, when we had Anambra Oshun, by this time, I mean, we're almost done. I mean, results were almost completed. We're at a certain stage. So what exactly would you say is going on? Why this is, maybe taking time in these states? Because for the National Collation Center to kick off, like we've been told, these states need to tidy up and then move to Abuja. And from what we're seeing, they're not ready at the moment. What could you say is responsible?
Well, first and foremost, I would want to congratulate Nigerians and ourselves for having been this dogged. And it is a clear indication of the fact that democracy has come to stay and that the alternatives are being rejected, even in the face of the democratic reversals we're witnessing all across the world as a result of certain factors. With respect to your question, I wouldn't want to be absolutely the mouthpiece of INEC, but I think from analysis, it will be fair to reach the submission that part of the factors, there are a number of factors that could basically lead to the sort of scenario that we're witnessing right now. But one of them is that I would want to assume that INEC did not anticipate the number of turnout which we're witnessing currently in this election that has just been conducted. Also, added to that is the fact that, quite frankly, logistics have been a recurrent problem in our elections since 1999, and it is one that appears not to have been absolutely dealt with. Of course, there is no absolute with any social issue, but then to the extent to which we can say we have reached the benchmark where we have surpassed these problems, and then we move to other problems. The crisis of logistics are still there. And so I, again, would want to assume that that is also an additional problem to the reason why we're seeing these results not being turned in from where they came. Because obviously, you see, the thing about preparation is that it is a structural thing. If you don't start early, there's no way of finishing early. There's no skyrocket science to that. There's no magic to it. Most of the polling units, most of these local governments and these election areas, reports came in from places where there was delay. And the peculiar case of Kogi State, which he's talking about, I'm sure we're all live witnesses to reports that came in from Kogi about what politicians and political actors tried to do, digging trenches and things like that. These are all factors that would also contribute as well to the crisis of leading to the sort of outcome that we're witnessing today. So I'm sure a lot of these factors, some of which INEC, I'm sure, would want to shed more light on, would have contributed to the delay that we're witnessing. But we should, at this point in our democratic life, be able to overcome some of these challenges. And it is not just...
yes, overcome the challenges. You want to tell us how we can overcome it. Of course, we'll come back to you so you can tell us that. I'd like Paul to respond. He said that the reason we're seeing this, you've been here, you've seen our reporters from all the collation centers. They seem not to be ready at the moment. And you have been following the elections, not just 2023, 2019, the off-cycle elections, and now we're here. Do you agree that high voter turnout is one of the issue as regards the late, pronouncement of results in different states or wards or whatever it is that we are not seeing at the moment?
No, maybe I'll agree to the first point about the likelihood that INEC started the process late could be the reasons why we're seeing these delays. As for the turnout, it might be too early to conclude on that, since we don't have the official figures from INEC, and I wouldn't want to provide an anecdotal report based on what we are seeing on locations that, perhaps we are just seeing. When INEC up with its own figures from the turnout, then perhaps we can compare and see that. But again, not to be making excuses for INEC, to your point about what we have seen in other states and also why it's always different for a national election. I understand that they conduct about 2-3 elections about the same time, but the counting process is also the same. Beyond that is the fact that, going back to the point I had made earlier about communication on the part of INEC, they are always reactive, not proactive. I said they are not I said on this platform that they are not superhumans. If they are having challenges, let us know. Coming on air to tell us that you're going to start this process at 6 p.m. and then NTA has been able to scan through the country, and then from more than 2-3 states that we've had now, they've not even started at the state level. So at what point will they finish before they transmit this to Abuja? Given that also they are supposed to bring the hard copy to the Abuja office. So if you are talking about inspiring confidence, these are the kind of clear communication you want to provide to Nigerians. We're experiencing challenges, or perhaps there are locations where we didn't have elections yesterday. And to be fair to Nigerians, we want to give everybody the chance to be able to participate in this process. We have returned to conclude this process. Clear communication. So this group potentially waiting. Some of them slept at this collation center.
Yes, our correspondents in all the collation centers have been there since yesterday.
Exactly. So think about the man hours that we have lost. Think about even the security around these collation centers. I'm not sure that in all of these collation centers, because INEC officials are not ready, I'm not sure you can get the kind of security you will get if it could be different from what is obtainable now, that when you have the full complement of INEC officials at those collation centers. So a clear communication before this. We're experiencing challenges. Give us a few minutes, give us a few hours before we start. I think it will be better than this suspense that is happening at the moment.
Saka, do you agree there's suspense at the moment?
Yes, to a large extent. You remember I had mentioned earlier that while we want INEC to do a thorough job and be blameless, speed is of essence. If you give room for gaps, hours and days, you lead people to speculation.
And then the trust issue comes into play.
Trust issue begins to surface, and people will begin to spread rumors. Something you think is rumors, some people will believe them as hard facts and make up their mind in ways unexpected. One of the key elements we need to begin to examine when we have issues of this nature is openness. For instance, how much are journalists, party officials, CSOs, and key representatives taken into confidence by INEC for them to see the facts themselves and help them defend the situation with INEC. Other than what we hear the chairman of INEC say on TV, which is far in between. Passage of time leads to people speculating from various information you are having. So delay is not good for anybody. It's not good for the system. It further deepens the issue of trust deficit.
And
well, I've seen people withdraw money from ATM and stay there to count it. Some people see you withdraw and then ask you, is that machine dispensing money? Is it paying? Is it paying money? It cannot pay bread. It can only pay money. But we have so much trust issues around us. So, and when you now give days for people to make all kind of conjectures, it creates a lot of problems. So I think we can begin to see how do we deal with this avoid these delays, and if they happen, how do we make sure we can carry people along and avoid speculation?
Yes, I'm talking about the speculations and the delay, the trust issue. If INEC is not coming out as fast as possible to give us results, that's where fake results will also begin to fly.
Exactly.
As fast as possible, and then people would now have an idea of what the result looks like, and then when INEC comes out with their own result much later, there's an issue of, are you sure this is it, and all of that. And then the fact that some Nigerians not have an opportunity, probably to to be watching us at the moment, to be watching the INEC chairman at the moment. So it's what somebody comes to tell them, I just saw results somewhere, and and they fly with that. Okay, yes, very important issues, and yes, we need to deal with them. But I'll quickly come to Mukhtar now. While you were speaking, you were talking about the challenges that we have on hand, and you were trying to prefer some of the ways that we could actually handle some of these issues. I'd like to hear some of them.
Well, not entirely. Well, you see, just as with every social issue, and elections are also social issues as well, and there is no social issue that has a single cause. Or social problem with a single cause. All social problems are multifaceted, the same way they are multi-layered. And there is no silver bullet to solve any social crisis as far as these issues are concerned. So the same applies to the elections. But with the peculiar issues at hand here, with respect to logistics, with respect to the dearth and, of course, the deficit in communication, I think these are critical areas that INEC and all other stakeholders need to begin to have a synergy around conversation, so that somehow a way can be sought out of it. Because like I said earlier, I recall, the issue of logistics has been recurrent since 1999. We've talked about these things. I mean, from 1999 up till today, we're still talking about MCO Luomo in distribution of election materials. You see, that goes to tell you that these issues have been long-standing. And so, of course, a lot needs to be done. I understand that funding has... the INEC basically complained at some point about the release of funds and that it came in trenches not until on the eve of election and so on and so forth. These funds did not come about. So funding is very critical. But beyond just funding, there are also issues that need to be looked at. The communication gaps that has been talked about. You see, the trust deficit, wherever there isn't communication, wherever there's no openness, naturally there is apprehension, even in marriages. There is naturally, the outcome of that is going to lead to some kind of suspicion. And this is exactly what we see playing out here. So communication is key. There have been, you see, governance and administration in this country has always had the problem of that deficit in communication, not just with elections, with all other policies and programs of government as well. And so people are left to speculate, people are left to come up with all kinds of bogus assumptions and so on. And this is not good, particularly for an issue as sensitive as a presidential or a national election. We shouldn't be seeing this playing out. And so while we will commend INEC and a few of the other stakeholders who also share in the responsibility of this, because you see, election is not just about INEC alone. We also have to look at the areas that they need to make up for. Election is about an entire stakeholder involvement. There is no political party in whose constitution there isn't the mention of system maintenance. None at all, all of them. And what is system maintenance? It is about voter education. It is about political communication. It is about ensuring that those sections and segments of the Constitution that talks about refusing to overheat the polity, refusing to bring bigotry and chauvinism into our politics, and so on and so forth, are dealt with, are curbed by the political parties and the actors. But no, for the political actors, election is about a 4-year circle. They go and return, go and return. We shouldn't be seeing this playing out all over the world, in climes where democracy is taken seriously. Political office holders and even those who aspire to it, who are political actors, are seen playing their roles throughout the 4-year circle. That is the election circle, the entire 4-year circle. And if it's going to extend to an 8-year circle, it again has to extend to that period of time. So these political parties need to do a lot more. Educate their voters, educate, their members, educate, and by extension, they're educating voters as well. So when you allow INEC alone to shoulder this responsibility, the head of the Department of Voter Education and INEC was talking. I was with IFES and I worked with NERDC on a couple of things, and we had people from INEC come on board. And the mention of some of the efforts that they have put into some of the things they do. We had people, representatives of political parties sitting there. None of them could speak to these issues because they don't do it. For them, it's alien as a matter of fact. So a lot more needs to be done in respect to this. And then again, of course, we need to also put in place punitive measures. You see, since 1999, we have been talking about election offenders. I haven't seen anybody that has been prosecuted. In Kano, there was a damage on alleged, of course it's in court, I think Funkoso has gone to court, or to Funkoso, the presidential flag bearer of the NNPP, his entourage or something. 24 hours after that, yesterday I was somewhere and I was listening to someone who was talking over the phone. The people who were apprehended were released 24 hours after the incident had happened. We shouldn't see this happening. I'm only picking this out of it so that we can relate to a very recent incident. So punitive measures have to be put in place. I saw on television, was it in Lagos, at Lekki or somewhere, where people came to vandalize voting materials. In this era, in this age and time, where the sensitization should have gone past that stage, where people should understand that damaging these materials will do us no good. The BVAS is basically ensuring that. And so therefore, why damage it? You're damaging this because you're trying to impede on the outcome of the election results, perhaps to scuttle someone's victory or something like that. So we have a deficit here, but the question is not about the trust deficit in itself, but those factors that have driven this trust deficit. We must understand that leaders and citizens must share in this responsibility as well. There's a social-psychological conditioning of the average Nigerian that has driven us to where we are right now. And in that strand of the social-psychological conditioning, there's a lack of patriotism and there is indiscipline. These are the two factors. So until we begin to reorientate ourselves, and this is everybody's business, it's not just about INEC. We are all stakeholders in the Nigerian project, and a lot of these things have to be pushed in so that we'll be able to see the outcome of results that we will all own up to and be proud of. Of course, we are doing so well. We are not where we were when we started. Technology has come to play. The Electoral Act has basically come to play with some of the dimensions in it, but some of the other things within the Electoral Act that cannot be captured by legislation. For example, how do you legislate morality? Buying and selling of votes. Is that not the business of two consenting adults who stay in the thick of the night and go about it? So this is where the attitudinal issue basically comes to play, and it's the responsibility of us Nigerians to be able to tackle these issues. It is not to say that we begin to compare ourselves with democracies all around the world. No, we cannot do that. In 2015, when this country conducted an election that was adjudged one of the first and fairest in the world, the United States was contesting the outcome of an election. Isn't that supposed to be the most advanced democracy according to Huntington and his likes? But here we are. So democracy is a journey. It is never a destination.
True. I think I'll hold you at that point, Mukhtar. I want to quickly get to Paul James now, Director of Programs, Yaga Africa. You have listened to Mukhtar Imam talk about the issues, and you also mentioned quite a few while you were talking. I'd like you to respond, and also particularly I want you to respond to the issue of funding. How much we're spending on elections in this country? Would you say that with what we are spending and the outcome, would you say that Nigerians are actually getting, because this is our money, like it's the taxpayers' money. Yes. Would you say that Nigerians are actually getting value for their money as regards what we're spending on our electoral process every 4 years, and maybe for the off-cycle elections, you know, the governorship and all of that?
We will not be talking about the funding issue, funding concerns, if the value is there, if the value is seen. We're talking about this because, I mean, the election is barely 24 hours, and if you look back and you think about the kind of investment, especially in this time of their economic stress for Nigeria, you begin to wonder. According to INEC's budget that was presented in the National Assembly, 305 billion. And then if you think about by the time they made the projections to now, and there are a lot of things that could have happened in between, I would not be surprised if INEC got addition, or if also INEC got support from other donor agencies to be able to do this election. But like we keep saying also, sometimes we also want to see openness on the part of the Commission. It could be 305 billion on paper, and perhaps they didn't get much of that from the government, or it could also be the other way around. But the much that Nigerians knew was that this is so much of the taxpayers' money that was committed to the elections, and so Nigerians don't deserve less. Nigerians expect more from the election management body. They could tell you that the most of this went into the new advances we saw, the technology and all of that. Yesterday was when INEC is supposed to showcase this to the world. The INEC election results being portal. As of 10 p.m., no results was uploaded on this until this morning before people began to see this thing uploaded. So if you connect this also to confidence, there is no reason why I should not be in the comfort of my room and be able to see what is the outcome of the election results, for instance, in Gombe, in Bauchi, and all of that. and they don't necessarily even have to wait until they begin to trim in. That is the only way that I thought I could begin to trust the system, and that the kind of investment that was done is yielding fruit. And I could argue that they didn't go full-fledged electronic voting. All they simply did was the transmission. But then if you think also about the recent concerns and why I thought this was important, in Osun, for instance, we didn't have the final figure of voters accredited by the Beavers updated on INEC, on any of the INEC websites. INEC this time made commitment to doing that. So if you even want to get Nigerians on your side, this is the way to start. At the end of the election, transmit these figures. If you have concerns, tell Nigerians where these challenges are. These concerns will continue to reverberate. Nigerians will continue to push, because I think until we begin to even hold some of these persons to account after every election, come and give account. How did you spend Nigerians' resources? Give account of the whole system, audit the entire system. Tell us where challenges are. If it is a vendor that disappoints you, if it is some of the clients that you work with that disappointed you, let us know and begin to know where to put this blame, or how we begin to ensure sanctions to any of these erring personnel in the value chain, so that for us at the end, we should be coming out of the election to be rejoicing that we got the best of the elections that Nigerians deserve. Not every time you go out of an election and if you look back, they are all sad tastes. All you keep getting are sad tastes about the process. And then, sadly, the issues remain the same. What we had in 2019 are the same issues we're talking about again in 2023. Many thanks, Paul, for your thoughts. I'll get to Saka quickly, but I hear that my colleague Caleb is ready for an update from Just South now. Caleb Gochin.
Hello. Oh, thank you very much, Ira. Sorry, we were about to come on when the public address system here also came on, because one of the returning officers is now submitting his results. But Jos South is one of the largest local government areas in Plateau State, with 12 wards and more than 1,000 polling units. We have here the returning officer for Jos South and Jos East local government areas. So that is where these two local governments are returning or bringing their results. So we are at that center right now at the Jos South local government area. And the returning officer, Professor Jonathan Dabak, is here with us. So he will tell us what is happening, maybe how many wards have brought their results, and really an up-to-date on what is happening here. Yes, Professor, thank you for joining us, sir.
It's okay, thank you.
So can you tell us how many wards you have received their results already for the presidential and...
Out of the 12 wards, we have only 4 left. So that is to say we have collected 8. So 8 wards have been collected, and we are waiting for 4.
Okay, so so far, how has it been with
It has been smooth.
Government?
It has been smooth, especially here at the Collation Center. There is no problem, as you can see. Everything is going on smoothly. Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor. And as you know, the officials are not really to give us more than what they've given us in terms of information. But I tell you, everything is going on really fine here with no challenges. So just like we met in Jos North, security personnel are here. And party agents, the National Orientation Agency, all these stakeholders are here to see what is happening. So far, so good. Studio?
That it's very peaceful right there in Jos North, where collation has actually begun, and like we just heard, 8 wards have been collated. So it means in a very short time will be done from that particular center. Many thanks, Caleb. We'll come back to you, of course. I'm sure that we'll get final results from you, or maybe, I don't know if we are going to wait till the results travel to the National Collation Center, where we'll get to hear it. But whichever way, of course, the results would come out in no distant time. So I'll quickly get to Saka now. You know, before we went to Jos, we're talking about the issues. Our electoral process. You already expressed your dissatisfaction with the whole process, and you know I've asked about the money, and because we need to, like they say, you need to trace the money, right? You need to track it, like they say, election money. Very important. No, because I mean this money could have been used to do other things. All right. So now if we're using it for elections, then I mean, there should be some value. Nigerians should be able to say, okay, yes, this money was well spent, and you know, this is what we have, and we trust what has happened, and we agree with the result of the whole thing. So, yeah, give us your own perspective. Do you agree with the issues mentioned so far by Mukhtar and Paul, or do you think there are other issues that is leading us to where we are at the moment?
Yeah, I agree with the issues raised, but I think they have largely been underplayed. First and foremost, on the issue of financial accountability. The issue of financial accountability is key because we need to have value for money. If we are spending so much for INEC to do its job, it is not too much to ask it not only to do that work very well, but to tell us how well it has done it and how well it has spent that money. At present, auditing INEC is quite opaque. It's not something is well known to everyone that if you give them so much money, how do they tell us how they spent that money? We only know that at the next electoral cycle, they ask for more. And we struggle to keep them on so that they don't say that they couldn't do the work because there was no money. Everything they ever asked for is given to them. Now, but not all problems can be solved with money. Mukhtar has mentioned the issue of morality, for instance. Human behavior, human failing cannot be legislated upon, and money cannot solve some of those problems. There are people who are kleptomaniacs. No matter how much you give them, they will still steal something. So we need to have that clear template on how does INEC, give us accountability for the much money that is spent on it. Because, for instance, logistics is, we have talked about delay in carrying out delivering electoral materials and officials. It's logistics issue. It's largely financial. Why do we have to have INEC bet in motor parks, Agberos, to help us deliver electoral material? Some of them are controversial. Some of them are quite independent and fair-minded. But why will you look for somebody who is controversial as your first port of call to deliver sensitive issues you are working with? That is one. Now, the second aspect of accountability, which Mukhtar mentioned, which I really want us to lay much emphasis on, is accountability for electoral misbehavior. That is very important. It's so important that the National Peace Committee, along with other stakeholders, have been begging the National Assembly to set up the Electoral Offences Commission, so that people who break the law of election, people who misbehave in the electoral process, are brought to account. Let me give you an example. Electoral tribunal, there is civil court. It's a civil court, so they don't try criminal matters. So if you make allegation of criminal matters during an electoral process, even if the tribunal finds that that allegation is true, they will not punish you for that crime. So they will only decide the civil part of it. And in many cases, in Edo State, in Ekiti State, it was held that the person who won that election, in Rivers, in Anambra, it was held that the people who won that election and were taken from them committed fraud to win the election. And therefore, another person was declared the winner. And so, the man who was sworn in for committing fraud to win an election simply goes home. Nothing happens to him. Nothing happens to him. And it is all there in black and white in the electoral election tribunal judgments. You have many cases like that. And so what happens to them? Nothing happens. So nothing discourages them from doing the same thing next time because they know nothing will happen. And this has to stop. So if people who snatch boxes and take away ballot papers, they are not spirits, they are human beings. What happens to them? None of them is in jail. None of them have been tried. Now, the last time we asked, INEC says, the law says they are the ones to prosecute such people. INEC does not have sufficient lawyers to do that. Federal Ministry of Justice does not have sufficient lawyers to do that. So, who tries them? As we are talking now, before the first voter voted yesterday, INEC has more than 600 cases in court already on pre-election issues. How do we manage that? At present, Nigerians vote. Court decides who has won, not INEC.
Okay, well, I think I would want to hold you on your thoughts right there as regards, you know, you thinking that maybe the court, maybe we'll begin to see a difference in this particular election.
We need to take that matter very seriously.
Okay, yes. So maybe let's just wait for the results to come out, you know, from this election. And of course, as we look forward to March 11, let's hope that, you know, things will begin to change and that the court will not be the deciding factor as to who won an election and who lost. It should be the people who actually went out to vote. Because like Paul mentioned earlier, people's time, people's money, so much has been, you know, spent in this election. And so it will be good that, yes, the electorate can say, oh, well, yes, I was a part of those who voted for so and so person who is in power today, instead of the court coming up to say, oh, no, it's XYZ that actually won. Beautiful submission. Thank you so much, Saka. But at this point, I'd like to appreciate Paul James. He's the director of program selections, Yaga Africa. Many thanks for joining us on the program. You have other engagement, of course. Yes, I know that you're still tracking the numbers, tracking, you know, all the events from the field, and at the moment you're tracking results. Yeah, so we'd also like to get an update from you, like we did during the off-cycle election, where you came out to say, oh, well, INEC's results and the results that we gathered from our end, you know, I think that we are at the same point. It will be beautiful to hear that. Many thanks, Paul James, once again for your time. All right, so, yeah, so while Paul James would leave us, but would still have with us Mukhtar Imam and Saka Azimazi, just here right here in the Abuja studio. But at this point, I need to go straight to the land of beauty. Yes, Adamawa State. My colleague Simon Asha is in Yola, and I know that 1.788 million PVCs were collected in that state. So what's the situation, Simon, from your end?
So far, the situation here in Adamawa, I'm now live at the INEC headquarters for the collation of presidential results. So far, only one local government area, that is Lamdo local government area, that the results have been collected for the presidential election. And in Adamawa, we have about 21 local government areas. So subsequently, we were told that around this by 5 o'clock in NS, the other local government areas will come with this, especially those that are nearby, and those that are from Minchika, Madagali, which is about, let me say, more than 200 kilometers from the capital city here in Yola. They will follow suit immediately. But the situation here is peaceful, is calm. There are enough security agencies here, party representatives, all of them are here. And everything is going as expected and smoothly.
All right, Simon, everything is going on smoothly. Yes, thank you so much for that update. We'll definitely come back to you. And yes, we want to know what the figures are like in Adamawa State. Many thanks once again. So I'll quickly come back to my guest right here in the studio. Mukhtar, you've had the submissions of Paul, who just left us, and of course Saka, about the electoral process. But, you know, there's a very sensitive issue which Saka mentioned earlier, you know, talking about the gender issue. Yes, because we're talking about trust. Yes, we have agreed, or rather, you, my guests, have agreed that trust is one of the main issues that we have in our electoral process. It is affecting a lot of things. Is it possible that if we have women, if there's a gender balance somehow, like say, you know, women are carried along in the whole process, that maybe we'll begin to trust the process? I know. So I want to hear from you. What really are the issues? Because Saka gave us the numbers. It's very low. Women are not, you know, their voices are not being heard as far as the electoral process is concerned in this country. What really are the factors? And then do you think that if we have more women on board, we'll be able to solve this issue of trust?
The first time I heard, I think it was on CNN, where someone was questioning Dr. Amina, our own at the UN, Amina Mohammed at the UN. And the question was, what would you feel if you to see a Nigeria led by a female? And she said, that would be an exciting moment. I would really cherish that moment. And my question to able UN representative was, just any woman? And I said, just any woman. I think at this stage we should begin to look past the gender issue. Yes, of course, we should have representation from all sexes. We should have representation from all biological makeups. As long as they're humans, we should have representation from every ethnicity. We should have representation from every religion. So whatever category we would want to catalog people into, there should be representation, no doubt about that. Because obviously, particularly with our own case, we're in a heterogeneous society, so we certainly require some of these, you know, variables brought to play so that we can have representation across board. And this is what people like myself have agitated over the years, particularly with our version of democracy. I have always talked about proportional representation, which is often mistaken for congressmen and people in the National Assembly. That, for me, doesn't cut it. I think it should go beyond that. Right, but to answer your question, by the way, the reason why I'm going around your question is because I do not want to get roped into the whole gender equality and gender sensitivity thing. Truth of the matter is, men and women shouldn't be competing in the first place. Women were created to do the things that men cannot do. This is just the submission for me. Men and women are the same. We're just different because of the things, our outlook on issues and so on and so forth. But as far as our build-up is concerned, biologically, we're the same. Yes, of course, scientists have talked about those genes that make men superior in a certain sense, for a lack of better word, to women. Of course, men have 45% more resistance as far as their biological build-up is concerned, as opposed to women. But having said that, I think it's fair, it's only fair for us to look at the issues from a perspective of capacity to deliver. I think it's only fair for us to look at.
So do you think that women do not have the capacity?
No, I am not saying so. I'm only trying to say we should try to downplay the issue of having both, giving to women things that we assume they deserve, so to speak. I'll clarify on that very shortly. What am I saying? You see, if we continue along the path of having more women representation, there are bad women as much as there are good men. Right? And so it's the same question of young and youth representation. For me, I think it's just a fallacy. I think it's just a way to digress from the issues at hand. And the same sense of entitlement which that has created for young people is exactly what is happening to women as well. Now, when we look at the issues that perhaps we assume have led to the lack of representation of women in political spaces and economic spaces, in whatever spaces, you will come to the realization that those issues are superficial actually. Because the legislation, first and foremost, is what allows people or gives people equal rights and representation, right? There isn't a legislation, there is no law that is against women voting and things like that. And let's go to the internal party mechanisms of these political parties. Lately, we saw what the parties did by giving women free access to forms and so on and so forth. When we talk about the cultural issues that we have talked about in the past that hold women back, of the 5.5 1.29 million people that are registered voters in Kano State, for example. Newly registered of them are 329,000 new registered voters. 65% of them are women. So we see women inclusion, we see women representation. But the point is this: have women ascended to position of authority as much as we would want them to? And the answer is obvious, no. We have just heard the figure from Saka himself. But the question again is this: are these women being retarded, or there is a certain factor, psychologically, physically, or otherwise, that tends to retard they themselves, the women?
So you're trying to say that they don't have the capacity?
The capacity question comes to play when they have assumed the position of authority. I am talking about the process leading to women getting to that position of authority. I am sure we're specifically referring to political office here. Let's get this very right.
Yes, political office.
Because administratively, with respect to the bureaucracy and whatnot, I am sure there are a whole lot of issues that play out around there. But as far as public office is concerned, are women subdued by a certain factor that disallows them from contesting election, from vying for political offices? We saw what happened in the case of Sarah Jibrin, that's her name, the former SSA to Goodluck Jonathan, Her Excellency Mrs. Sarah Jibril. That is, when she contested elections, the population of women in this country are what? Are the women not more than half of the population of the country? She emerged with 3 votes. So my thing is this: you see, when you look at this from a historical perspective, you will come to the realization that the sense of entitlement is one of the key factors that is basically leading us to where we are. And the reason for that sense of entitlement is because we have put out a narrative there. You see, the constant reiteration of the assumption that women are being suppressed by men has led to where we are. And this is exactly what is happening to young people who say, give us power. Power has never been given. In the history of the evolution of man, it has always been about sought after it, get it, and make an impact. This is plainly how things are. And so, of course, that sense of entitlement basically begins to play out when we constantly reinforce this position. And this rhetoric has been put out there. And so a woman sits somewhere and she says, give me. It will not be given. If you listen to the woman from Jos, what she said a woman told her, who is a contestant, that this is the last time. It's too rigorous. It's too tedious. Nobody said it was ever going to be easy. But this is not to lump up women generally in that category. The point I am trying to make is, yes, of course, it will be fantastic for us to see capable women, not women who are equally thieves as their male counterpart, as we have seen in history. But we should see capable women who have the capacity to deliver, also showcase themselves. Election contest is like the beauty pageant that has been used as an illustration oftentimes. Those who present themselves on the stage are the people whom we will pick the most beautiful woman from. Perhaps the most beautiful woman is in someone else's house. But we have to pick out of those who have presented themselves. So it is okay for us to constantly talk about the fact that women should be given representation. It is okay for us to talk about putting in place legislation that will allow women certain leverage to be able to come on board and, of course, assume these positions of authority. Even the United Nations that talks about the 35% affirmative action. Go there and find out. Women have not occupied up to that. Is it because they have closed the doors? No. Perhaps because the women have not presented themselves who will be able to occupy these offices. So the long and short of what I'm trying to say is this, that there is the need to ensure a more inclusive system, particularly with our democracy. While there is that, there is also the need for the women themselves who feel they have the capacity, just as young people who feel they have the capacity to deliver, to also showcase themselves, so that from amongst those who have brought themselves out, we will be able to pick.
All right. Thank you so much, Mukhtar. I like the passion that you have spoken. Yes, although some women may not like your position. And I'm glad that I have 2 men discussing this issue in the studio. So it's not like, okay, you know, I'm being one-sided or something. I'm having 2 men deal with this issue. And I know that Saka wants to respond because he's been the one pushing about this gender issue as regards the electoral process. But I will hold you just a bit so that you can put your thoughts
That is injustice. That's violation of human rights. I have a right to reply.
You have a right to reply. You're going to reply, but please, I have to go to Kano quickly.
Please, let's go to
I want to
Kano
give you enough time, to put all your thoughts together so that your response to Mukhtar will be robust. And since I'm the woman at the middle between the two men, I hope I'll be able to hold.
No. It will be far easier. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So let's go to Kano now. I have my colleague there, Yahanasu Hassan Barrow. She's right there at the Collation Center. Yahanasu, what's the feel like in Kano?
Good afternoon. Kano is good. We are now at the Independent National Electoral Commission office, headquarters here in Kano, where returning officers from 11 out of the 44 local government areas are already here waiting for the collation, but a little delay as a result of number of representatives from the political parties. Just as the INEC officials said, it has to be 5 representatives from different political parties, as the guideline says. But nevertheless, there is a domestic observer here with me who has been out there since yesterday and today. Sileya Usile, he is from Women and Youth Support Group. He will give us an insight of what really happened yesterday and today. Sileya Usile, how was Kano from yesterday and today regarding the election?
So actually we went around virtually the metropolitans and all local governments where the polls have been carried out, and the election has been peaceful. We received no complaint. You understand, the election was peaceful, and every party agents and other electoral officers were there, and the election was very peaceful, and there were no complaints actually.
So, Sani, how has it been, Was the election really, as you said, peacefully? Arrival of materials and other beavers complaint as we received here. How is it?
So actually, the materials came early, but some of the places, the complaint